Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah. And today's date, Wednesday, June 22nd, 2016. Yes, I am in Utah, Roy City to be exact, which is like a half hour north of Salt Lake City and south of Ogden. So you understand and know the bigger picture if you're familiar with the state. Yeah, I'll probably be out here for a couple months, maybe 3 at the most, and be heading back to South Florida roughly in September. So just to let everyone know, I got a few things I'm trying to take care of. Trying to get away with some drama, but I have drama where I'm at as well. But I'll just leave it at that. It's just interesting when you see on Facebook and Twitter, Amnesty International, talk about 30,000 people died in guns, men, women, and children. We need tougher gun laws and all that. The greatest deception of them all, especially when you have like sites like Press TV, the state-run station from Iran, trying to support this cause and all this and that. You know what? Shut up. If you don't know the bigger picture, you need to shut the hell up. Sometimes I get really insulted when other countries try to tell me how to think and want to wipe my butt, even nannies within my own government. My rights are natural born. I don't need legislation telling me how to think, what to do, as long as I don't harm others. If people still believe that the Second Amendment was responsible for the shootings in Orlando, ought to have their heads up their behinds because they don't even have a damn clue, can't even lead a pack of rats to the nearest dump site, or, in other words, can't get it out of a paper bag. All these control fiend, treasonous parasites need to take a look into the mirror. There's even reports, too, that the shootings in Orlando, PSYOPs, Project Orion, another mind control entity, and many others. False flags, actors. It's like Sandy Hook all over again. Even when I was watching the videos, too, I don't see any ambulances and so forth. Yeah, look it up. I got the stuff on Facebook, so don't be shy. Check it out. You can link it from my Spreaker page. You can see it for yourself. Just type in like Orlando shooting scandals, false flags, and all that. Always observe responsibly. Of course, they're gonna say this guy Omar Mateen was a Muslim, and then the other guy said, "Nah, he was my gay lover." It's like a ping pong ball. That's why I've been pretty consistent when I say it was a New World Order agenda, regardless of what it is. It actually happened, false flag, or in between. They want us to be submissive to them. And I say, hell no. And Thomas Paine would back me up on that. So this is how I observe the world. Not to play this little sheep of illusion and fear. If you don't like it, too bad. You can turn it off. Don't follow me on Spreaker. Taking me off your Facebook page. It doesn't matter. Because deep down inside, you know I'm right. I dare anyone out there that disagree with me. If the police are obligated to protect me as an individual, I dare you to prove it. Please. I recommend it. Prove to me they're obligated to protect my family, my friends, strangers, etc. This is why I'm always see things a lot broader. And I know one good thing about it because people are waking up, which is great. Which a lot more would happen. But of course, you're always going to have the dinkleberries of the society, regardless what part of the world you live in. I'm not saying I'm better than them. But I just find it really disturbing when you got a lot of folks out there who want to jump the gun, have the magic lamp theory, and everything will be hunky-dory. So I always agree that self-defense is righteous, or self-preservation is the highest law of human nature, regardless of what you look like, who you are, what's your creed, and so forth. Not being Rambo or G.I. Joe or anything like that. It's just human nature as a whole. And people need to learn this now. But one great thing I know in the United States alone, all the bills, so-called gun control bills, no fly, don't buy, without due process, got ejected, and I love it. And you see some of these folks out there with their sitting out there in protest like a bunch of crybabies. You know what? Honor your oath or get the hell out because they're contaminating space. And people leave, and even in Congress, they're saying that we need tougher firearm laws to fight crime. One, you're in a wet dream. Two, you're an enemy of a free nation. I don't believe in giving my freedom for security because it gives you nothing. Any questions? Look up Benjamin Franklin. That's one of his great quotes. But that'd be enough ranting on this. But first off, I'm going to be addressing something interesting. Came from usnews.com. I thank Doug Owen, Blacklisted News. He puts out great stuff and has the links to back it up. I always we follow each other on Twitter. It's from Rob Epstein's contributor, usnews.com, about the new censorship. It's mainly about Google Inc. It says here, Google Inc. isn't just the world's biggest purveyor of information. It is also the world's biggest censor. The company maintains at least 9 different blacklists that impact our lives, generally without input or authority from any outside advisory group, industry association, or government agency. Google is not the only company suppressing content on the internet. Reddit has frequently been accused of banning posting on specific topics, and a recent report suggests that Facebook has been deleting conservative news stories from its news feed, a practice that might have significant effect on public opinion, even on voting. Google, though, is currently the biggest bully on the block. When Google employees or algorithms decide to block our access to information about a news item, political candidate, or business, opinions and votes can shift. Reputations can be ruined and businesses can crash and burn. Because online censorship is entirely unregulated at the moment, victims have little or no recourse when they have been harmed. Eventually, authorities will almost certainly have to step in, as they did when credit bureaus were regulated in 1970. The alternative would be allow large corporations to wield an especially destructive kind of power that should be exercised with great restraint and should belong only to the public. The power to shame or exclude. If Google were just another mom and pop shop with a sign saying we reserve the right to refuse to service anyone, that would be one thing. But as a golden gateway to all knowledge, Google has rapidly become essential in people's lives, nearly as essential as air or water. We don't let public utilities make arbitrary and secretive decisions about denying people services. We shouldn't let Google do so either. Let's start with the most trivial blacklist and work our way up. I'll save the biggest and the baddest. One the public knows virtually nothing about that gives Google an almost obscene amount of power. Our economic well-being until last. 1. An autocomplete blacklist. There's a list of words and phrases that are excluded from the autocomplete feature in Google search bar. The search bar instantly suggests multiple search options when you type words such as democracy or watermelon, but it freezes when you type profanities, and at times it has frozen when people type words like torrent, bisexual, and penis. At this writing is freezing when I type clitoris. The autocomplete blacklist can also be used to protect our discredited political candidates. As recently reported at the moment, autocomplete shows you Ted, former GOP presidential candidate Ted Cruz. When you type lion, it will show not only Hillary. When you type crooked, not even on my computer anyway. When you type Crooked Hill, the nickname for Clinton and Cruz coined by Donald Trump, of course. And if you add the A, so you've got Crooked Hilla, you can get very odd suggestion. Crooked Hillary Bernie, when you type crooked on Bing, crooked Hillary pops instantly. Google's list of forbidden terms varies by regional and individual, so clitoris might work for you. Can you resist checking? There's a list for that. 2, the Google Maps blacklist. This list is a little more creepy, and if you're concerned about your privacy, it might be a good list to be on. The cameras of Google Earth, Google Maps have photographed your home for all to see. If you don't like that, just move. Google's former CEO Eric Schmidt said Google also maintains a list of properties it either black out or blurs out in its image. Some are probably military installations, some the residence of wealthy people, and some, well, who knows, Martian pre-invasion enclaves. Google doesn't say. 3, the YouTube blacklist. YouTube, which is owned by Google, allows users to flag inappropriate videos, at which Google censors away and sometimes remove them, but not according to a recent report by Gizmodo. With a great consistency, expect perhaps when it comes to politics. Consistent with the company's strong and open support for liberal political candidates, Google employees seem far more apt to ban politically conservative videos than liberal ones. In December 2015, singer Susan Bartholomew sued YouTube for removing her openly pro-life music video, but I can find no instance of pro-choice music being removed. YouTube also sometimes acquiesces to censorship demands of foreign governments, most recently in return for overturning a 3-year ban on YouTube in Pakistan. It agreed to allow Pakistan's government to determine which videos it can and cannot post. It's interesting because one time one of my shows got censored got taken off. They said it was inappropriate. And I went through the policy. It has no merit. So I want them to explain why, in their own words, it got taken off. Well, they decided to put it back on. Thanks for nothing. 4, Google account blacklist. A couple years ago, Google consolidated members of its products: Gmail, Google Docs, Google Plus, YouTube, Google Wallet, and others. So you can access all of them through your one Google account. If you somehow violate Google's vague and intimidating terms of service agreement, you will join the ever-growing list of people who are shut out of their accounts, which means you lose access to all these interconnected products, because virtually no one has ever read this lengthy logistic agreement. However, people are shocked when they are shut out, in part because Google reserves the rights to stop providing services to you at any time, and because Google, one of the largest and richest companies in the world, has no customer service department. Getting reinstated can be difficult. Given, however, all of these services gather personal information about you to sell to advertisers, losing one Google's account has been judged by some to be a blessing in disguise. 5, the Google News blacklist. If a librarian were caught trashing all the liberal newspapers before people could read them, he or she might get in a heap of trouble. What happens when most of the librarians in the world have been replaced by a single company? Google is now the largest news aggregator in the world, tracking tens of thousands of news sources in more than 30 languages, and recently adding thousands of small local news sources to its inventory. It also selectively bans news sources as it pleases. In 2006, Google was accused of excluding conservative news sources that generate stories critical of Islam, and the company has also been accused of banning individual columnists and competing companies from its newsfeed. In December 2014, facing a new law in Spain that would have charged Google for all scraping content from Spanish news sources, which, after all, have tried to have to pay to prepare their news. Google suddenly withdrew its news service from Spain, which led to an immediate drop in traffic to Spanish news stories. That drop in traffic is the problem. When a large aggregator bans you from its service, fewer people find your news stories, which means opinions will shift away from those support. Selective blacklisting of news sources is a powerful way of promoting a political, religious, or moral agenda with no one the wiser. It's interesting because it's like a form of public relations control. I could say this part of the Arabinese playbook, propaganda. So they could select, they could manipulate, and they get the people get caught hook, line, and sinker. That's how I see it. Okay, I don't know what your views are, but share that with me if you can. That'd be great. 6. The Google AdWords blacklist. Now things get creepier. More than 70% of Google's $80 billion in annual revenue comes from its AdWords advertising service, which it implemented in 2000 by infringing on a similar system already patented by Overture Services. The way it works is simple. Businesses worldwide bid on the right to use certain keywords in the short text ads that link to their websites. Those text ads are the AdWords. When people click on the links those businesses pay Google, these ads appear on Google.com and other Google websites and are also interwoven into content from more than 1 million non-Google websites. Google's display network. The problem here is that if a Google executive decides your business or industry doesn't meet its moral standards, it bans you from AdWords these days with Google's reach so large that can quickly put you out of business. In 2011, Google blacklisted an Irish political group that defended sex workers, which did not provide them after a protest. The company eventually backed down. Control, baby, yeah. In May 2016, Google blacklisted entire industry companies providing high-interest payday loans. As always, the company billed this dramatic move as an exercise in social responsibility, failing to note that it is a major investor in LendUp.com, which is an same industry. If Google feels to blacklist LendUp, it is too early to tell. The industry ban might turn out to have been more of an anti-competitive move than one of conscience. That kind of hypocrisy has turned up before in AdWords activities, whereas Google takes a moral stand. For example, in banning ads from companies promising quick weight loss in 2011, forfeited a whooping $500 million to the U.S. Department of Justice for having knowingly allowed Canadian drug companies to sell drugs illegally in the U.S. for years, though the AdWords system and several state attorneys generally believe that Google has continued to engage in similar practices since 2011. Investigations are ongoing, so it will take a long time. For Google 7, the Google AdSense blacklist. If your website has been approved by AdWords, you are eligible to sign up to Google AdSense, a system in which Google places ads for various products and services on your website. When people click on those ads, Google pays you. If you're good at driving traffic to your website, you can make millions of dollars a year running AdSense ads, all without having any product or service of your own. Meanwhile, Google makes a net profit by charging the companies behind ads, bringing them customers. This account for about 18% of Google's income. Here, too, there is a scandal. In April 2014, two posts on pastebin.com, someone claiming to be a former Google employee working in their AdSense department alleged the department engaged in a regular practice of dumping AdSense customers just before Google was scheduled to pay them. To this day, no one knows whether the person behind the post was legit, but one thing is clear. Since that time, real lawsuits filed by real companies have, according to WebPro News, have been piling up against Google, alleging the companies were unaccountably dumped at the last minute by AdSense just before large payments were due. In some cases, payments high as $500,000. Well. Interesting there, huh? Something to really look at, my friends. 8. The search engine blacklist. Google's ubiquitous search engine has indeed become the gateway to virtually all information, handling 9% of search in most countries. It dominates search because its index is so large. Google indexes more than 45 billion web pages. Its next biggest competitor, Microsoft's Bing, indexes a mere 14 billion, which helps to explain the poor quality of Bing's search results. Google's dominance in search is why businesses large and small live in constant fear of Google, as Matthias Döpfner, CEO of Axel Springer, the largest publishing conglomerate in Europe, put it in an open letter to Eric Schmidt in 2014. According to Döpfner, Google made one of its frequent adjustments to its search algorithm when the company's subsidiaries dropped dramatically in search rankings and lost 70% of its traffic within a few days. Even worse than the vagaries of the adjustments, however, are the dire consequences that follow when Google employees somehow conclude you have violated their guidelines. You either get banished to the way they visit Netherlands search pages beyond the first page. 90% of all clicks go to links on the first page, or completely removed from the index. 2011, Google took a manual action of a corrective nature against retailer JCPenney, punishment for Penney's alleged use of a legal SEO technique called link building that many companies employ to try to boost their rankings in Google search results. Penney's was demoted 60 positions or more in the rankings. Search ranking manipulations of this sort don't just ruin businesses, they also affect people's opinions, attitudes, beliefs, and behavior, as my research on the search engine manipulation effect has demonstrated. Fortunately, definitive information about Google's punishment program is likely to turn up over the next year thanks to legal actions the company is facing. In 2014, a Florida company called eVentures Worldwide filed a lawsuit against Google for completely removing almost every website associated with the company from the search rankings. When a company's lawyer tried to get internal documents relevant to Google's actions through typical litigation discovery procedures, Google refused to comply. In July 2015, a judge ruled that Google had to honor eVentures' discovery request, and that case is now moving forward. More significantly, in April 2016, the Fifth District Court of Appeals ruled that Attorney General of Mississippi supported his efforts by the Attorney General of 40 other states has a right to proceed with broad discovery requests in its own investigation into Google's secretive and often arbitrary practices. This brings me last to the biggest, potentially most dangerous of Google's blacklist, which Google calls it quarantine list. 9. Quarantine list. To get sense of the scale of this list, I find it helpful to think about an old movie, the 1951 classic film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, which starred a huge metal robot named Gort. He had a laser weapon eyes, zapped terrified humans into oblivion, who had the power to destroy the world. Klaatu, Gort's alien master, was trying to deliver an important message to Earthlings, but they kept shooting him before he could. Finally, to get the world's attention, Klaatu demonstrated the enormous power of the alien race he represented by shutting down at noon New York time all electricity on Earth for exactly 30 minutes. They shut it down. The Earth stood still. Substitute Ogle to RT. You can get Google, which is a bit powerful as Gort, but with much better public relations department. So good in fact that you are probably unaware that on January 31st, 2019, Google blocked access to virtually the entire internet. And is not to be done by 1951 science fiction movie, it did so for 40 minutes. Impossible, you say? Why would you do no evil Google do such an apocalyptic thing? And, for that matter, how, technically, could a single company block access to more than 100 million websites? The answer has to do with the black murky world of website blacklist. Ever-changing list of websites that contain malicious software that might affect or damage people's computers. There are many such lists, even tools such as blacklistalert.org that scan multiple blacklists to see if your IP address is on any of them. Some lists are kind of Mickey Mouse repositories where people submit the names or IP addresses of suspect sites. Others, usually maintained by security companies that help protect other companies, are more high-tech, relying on crawlers. Computer programs that continually comb the internet. But the best and the longest list of suspects is websites is Google's launch in May 2007. When Google is crawling the web more extensively than anyone else, it is also in the best position to find malicious websites. In 2012, Google acknowledged that each and every day it adds about 9,500 new websites to its quarantine list and displays malware warnings on the answer it gives to between 12 to 14 million search queries. It won't reveal the exact number of websites on the list, but it's certainly in the millions on any given day. In 2011, Google blocked an entire subdomain, co.cc, which alone contained 11 million websites, justified its actions by claiming that the most websites in that domain appear to be spammy, according to Matt Cutts, still the leader of Google's web spam team. The company reserves the right to take action when it deems it necessary. The right? Who gave Google that right? And it's nothing according to The Guardian on January 31st, 2009, at 2:14 GMT, Google blocked the entire internet for those impressive 40 minutes supposedly, said the company because of human error by its employees. It would have been 6:40 a.m. in Mountain View, California, where Google is headquartered. Was this time chosen? That is one of the few hours of the week when the world stock markets are closed. Could this have been another of many pranks for which Google employees are so famous? In 2008, Google invited the public to submit applications to join the first permanent human colony on Mars. Sorry, Marsophiles, it was just a prank. Interesting, huh? I would say. When Google search engine shows, excuse me here, you search a result for a site is quarantined. You see the warnings such as the site ahead contains malware, or this site may harm your computer on the search result. That useful information that the website actually contains malware, either because the website was set up by bad guys or because a legitimate site was infected with malware by hackers. But Google crawlers often make mistakes, blacklisting websites that have merely been hijacked, which means the website itself isn't dangerous, but merely that accessing it through the engine will forward you to a malicious site. My own website, drrobertstein.com, was hijacked in its way in early 2012. Accessing the website directly wasn't dangerous, but trying to access it through the Google search engine forwarded users to a malicious website in Nigeria. When this happens, Google not only warns you about the infected website in the search engine, which makes sense, it also blocks you from accessing the website directly through multiple browsers, even not non-Google browsers. Now that's odd. I'll get back to that point shortly. Mistakes are just one problem. The bigger problem is that even though it takes only a fraction of a second for a crawler to list you, after your site has been cleaned up by Google's crawler, sometimes takes days or even weeks to delist you, long enough to threaten the existence of some businesses. It is quite bizarre considering how rapidly automated online systems operate these days. Within seconds after you pay for a plane ticket online, your receipt is booked, your credit card is charged, your receipt is displayed, and a confirmation email shows up in your mail inbox. A complex series of events involving multiple computers controlled by at least 3 or 4 separate companies. But when you inform Google's automated blacklist system that your website is now clean, you are simply advised to check back occasionally to see if any action has been taken. To get delisted after your website has been repaired, you either have to struggle with the company's online webmaster tool, which are far from friendly, or you have to hire a security expert to do so, typically for a fee ranging between $1,000 and $10,000. No expert, however, can speed up the mysterious delisting process. The best he or she can do is set it in motion. So far, what I told you that is that Google's crawlers scan the internet, sometimes find what appears to be suspect websites, and put those websites on quarantine lists. The information conveyed users. The search engine is so far so good, except for, of course, for the mistakes and the delisting problem. Might even say that Google oops, sorry. Information is conveyed to users through the search engine. So far, so good, except for the course of the mistakes and the listening problem. One might even say that Google is performing a public service, which is how some people who are familiar with the quarantine list defend it. But I also mentioned that Google somehow blocks people from accessing websites directly through multiple browsers. How on earth could it do that? How could Google block you when you're trying to access websites using Safari and an Apple product, or Firefox, a browser maintained by Mozilla, a self-proclaimed nonprofit defender, the free and open internet? The key here is browsers. No browsers make or wants to send you a malicious website, and because Google has the best blacklist major browsers such as Safari and Firefox and Chrome. Of course, Google owns browser, as well as browsers that load through Android, Google Mobile's operating system. Check Google's quarantine list before they send you a website. In November 2014, Mozilla announced it will no longer list Google as a default search engine, but it also disclosed that it will continue to rely on Google's quarantine list to screen users' such requests. If the site has been quarantined by Google, you see one of those big, scary images. That's a thing, get me out of here, or report it attack site. At this point, given default security settings on most browsers, most people will find it impossible to visit the site. But who would want to? If the site is not Google's quarantine list, you are sent on your way. Interesting here, A lot of stuff here, kiddies, something to really look at, or something to really look at here. So, that explains how Google blocks you even when you're using a non-Google browser. But why do they block you? In other words, how does blocking you feed the revenue advertising machine, the sine qua non of Google's existence? Have you figured it out yet? The scam is simple and it's brilliant. When a browser queries Google's quarantine list, it is just shared information with Google. With Chrome and Android, you're always giving up information to Google, but you're also doing so even if you're using non-Google browsers. That is where the money is. More information about search activity kindly provided by competing browser companies. How much information is shared will depend on that particular deal the browser company has with Google. In the maximum information deal, Google will learn the identity of the user. In a minimum information deal, Google will still learn which websites people want to visit. Valuable data. When it's one of the business ranking websites, Google can also charge fees for access to its quarantine list. Of course, that's not where the real gold is. Chrome, Android, Firefox, and Safari currently carry about 92% of all browser traffic in the US, 74% worldwide, and these numbers are increasing. As of this writing, that means Google is regularly collecting information through its quarantine list from more than 2.5 million people. The given recent pact between Microsoft and Google in coming months, we might learn that Microsoft will save money and to improve its services and also started using Google's quarantine list in its point of its own much smaller list. This would further increase the value of information it is receiving. To put this another way, Google has grown and still growing on the backs of some of its competitors. With end users obvious to Google's antiques as usual, is yet another example of what I have called Google's Dance, the remarkable way in which Google puts a false friendly public face on activities that serve only one purpose for the company, increasing profit. On the surface, Google's quarantine list is yet another way Google helps us free of charge breathe through the day safe and well informed. Beneath the surface, the list is yet another way Google accumulates more information about us to sell to advertisers. You may disagree, but in the view Google's blacklisting practice put the company into the role of thuggish internet cop, a role that was never authorized by any government, nonprofit organization, or industry association. If the biggest bully in town suddenly put the badge and started patrolling, shuttering business as is pleased, while also secretly peeping into windows, taking photos and selling them to the highest bidder. Consider heading to the holiday in the late 2013, an online handbag business suffered a 50% drop in business because of blacklisting. In 2009, an eco-friendly pest control company, 60 days to leap the hurdles required to remove Google's warnings long enough to nearly go broke, and sometimes the blacklisting process appears to be personal. In 2013, the highly opinionated PC Magazine columnist John Dvorak wondered, when did Google become the internet police? After both his website and podcast site were blacklisted. He also ran into the delisting problem. It's funny, he wrote, how the site can be blacklisted in a millisecond by its analysts, but I have to wait forever to get cleared by the same analysis doing the same scan. Why is that? Could Google really be arrogant enough to mess with prominent journalists? According to CNN, in 2005, Google blacklisted all CNET reporters for a year after the popular technology news website published personal information about one of Google founders, Eric Schmidt, in a story growing privacy concerns. The company declined to comment on CNN's story. Google mysterious and self-serving practice of blacklisting is one of many reasons Google should be regulated just as phone companies and credit bureaus are. The EU recent antitrust action against Google, the recently leaked FTC staff report about Google's biased search rankings, President Obama calls for regulating internet service providers, all have merit, but they overlook another danger. No one company which is accountable to shareholders, but not to the general public, should have the power to instantly put another company out of business or block access to any website in the world. How frequently Google acts irresponsibly is beside the point. It has the ability to do so, which it means in a matter of seconds, any of Google's 37,000 employees with the right passwords or skills could laser a business or political candidate into oblivion, or even much of the world's economy. Some degree of censorship and blacklisting is probably necessary. I'm not disputing that, but suppression of information on the internet needs to be managed by, or at least subject to, regulations. Responsible public officials with every aspect of their operations transparent to all. It's interesting because he's a psychologist, right? Yeah, psychologist. That's very interesting because it's like manipulation. And like I use Google just to utilize. I'll never really use it as a search engine. I use other alternatives to get my information. I'll just do some little looking here and there. But if you leave all your eggs in one basket on Google, that would be a big mistake. I know other sites they try to work with Google, so technically they're top of the so-called search engine pyramid. But there's a real interesting claim on this, on the blacklisting and censorship and so forth. But the whole thing is, you always got to observe responsibly, and people got to go a lot further. Don't just rely on one area to get your information. That's one thing I could really recommend. So that's just one thing. So far, like I said, I'll use the YouTube and all that just to put the word out on my intake and so forth, and share information. But I don't really need to rely on them in one area. I would recommend hit other links, other sites, search engines that are a lot more meritable and not afraid to censor. I'm not afraid to have the free flow, the free information out there, more transparency. So that's one thing I got to say about this whole thing about Google. But I have to agree, it is a so-called new censorship. And I'm going to take a little breather and be right back. Okay, so enough of that. Let's see what else I have here up my sleeves from antiwar.com. It says here, Brent Scowcroft endorses Clinton. Says she understands the need for engagement abroad. Let's see here. General Brent Scowcroft, President Nixon's military advisor and the national security advisor for both Presidents Gerald Ford and George Herbert Walker Bush, today came out to publicly endorse former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for president. He probably got blackmailed, allegedly. Scowcroft was a primary architect of the first Gulf War and has subsequently had high-profile lobbying jobs for the Turkish and Azerbaijani government, a fact which considered particularly controversial because the largest interest in the U.S. military contractors. Scowcroft praised Clinton for her experience as Secretary of State, saying she understands the need for both the U.S. to maintain a strong military advantage and for considerable engagement beyond our borders to make the world safe. Long live the Empire! Scowcroft has made fewer public comments on foreign policy in recent years, but did accuse Iraq's Sunni Arab minority of being to blame for the country's woes at the U.S. occupation, saying that they are stuck in Saddam-era mindset. The consummate DC insider, and it's unsurprising that Scowcroft would see Clinton as preferable option to presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump, whose less status quo posture might threaten U.S. arm makers' bottom line and might weaken his lobbying stature. Yep, so Mr. Scowcroft wants to support the Jezebelian harlot to the New World Order, Hitlery, dumbed down Clinton. I'm not surprised at all. Makes him money. He supports the empire. He's just another globalist Uncle Tom, based on this article. So you have to really think about this again. As far as I'm concerned, I endorse Hillary Clinton to be in prison for a treasonous parasite that she is. Just an example. You know why? She's a freedom-hating douchebag and a CFR sympathizer. Yeah, check out Hillary Clinton and Chelsea are both members of the Council of Foreign Relations. Look it up, CFR.org, and look at their membership. I don't have to put it on my Facebook. I don't have to put it on my Spreaker page. A lot of you folks out there can take the initiative on doing this on your own. So too bad, General Scowcroft. You're just another imperialist douchebag as well. That's it for that. Next one here came from the Freedom Outpost by Tim Brown. It came out today. Obama administration claims to be able to protect you, but just lost Orlando's shooter's wife. By Tim Brown. Demonstrating once again that the central government has no real power to protect any of us inside the United States. The Obama administration has apparently lost the whereabouts of the Orlando shooter's wife, Nora Salman. First, consider this report from CNN. Federal investigators digging for clues in the Orlando nightclub massacre after zeroing in Nora Salman, the widow of gunman Omar Mateen. What did Salman know of his plans, and what might she have done to stop him? Authorities have been trying to pin her down after she apparently gave conflicting statements about what she knew of his intentions in the hours before the attack. A U.S. attorney plans to bring evidence before a federal grand jury to determine whether charges will be brought, according to two law enforcement officials. The process could take some time as investigators need to finish collecting evidence and establish a timeline for Mateen's activities leading to Sunday's attack at the gay club Pulse, in which 49 people were killed, the officials said. Salman Mateen's second wife had been cooperating with various law enforcement agencies. Salman told investigators that Mateen told her he had interest in carrying out a jihadist attack, but she denied knowing any specific plans, according to two law enforcement officials. She initially denied that when Mateen left the house Saturday that she had any idea he was going to do something violent. But in subsequent statements, Salman conceded she had a suspicion he might be planning an attack, perhaps on Pulse, the official said. According to one official, she knew for a while Mateen had thoughts of wanting to do something violent. He had been talking about it for months, if not years. According to a second official, Salman told investigators that on Saturday said she had tried to tell him not to commit violence, but she didn't call the police. Now all this seems pretty significant. The wife knew her husband was bent towards criminal violence, and yet she remained silent in my book. It is the same thing as the complicity, silence from the neighbors of the San Bernardino shooters. So, Salman seems to be pretty important in person in all of this. Why yet, Sadiq Mateen, Omar Mateen's father, told his son that she was no longer around. If you're looking for Noor, she is not here. I cannot say where she's gone, but she's not around here, Sadiq said. Even criminal attorney General Laura Lynch confirmed that she has no idea where Salman is. She told a reporter, right now, I do not know exactly the answer to that. I believe she is going to travel, but I don't know exactly her location now. One has to question the incompetence of purposefulness in all of this by the FBI and the DOJ. How do you not know where the key person is following the largest mass murder in American history? Well, well, well. Ha 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 ha. Something to think about, my friends. They have the investigation. They have Omar Mateen as the main guy who made his pledge of allegiance to ISIS. They claim to be a Muslim. But now they can't find her. They can't even do They can't do a real complete investigation of Hillary Clinton for 18 months. Come on, folks. Think about it. Something strange is going on. A little bit fishy, I would say. And that's why I'm not a big fan of Barry Soetoro and his little Mickey Mouse Club. It's like the other past administrations as well. But I do find this funny and very insulting too. And you know, it's interesting because when we talk about the whole thing about the false flags, I claim the false flags in Orlando. I will tell everyone this in the Orange County area and Ocala County area. You should go to the Orlando Police Department and get a see when that time comes. Get a copy of the police report on the shootings in Pulse in Orlando. They should have copies of that, because it's guaranteed under Article 1, Section 24 of the Florida Constitution. They cannot give you any policy agreements. They give it to you, pay you a little armor fee, which is understandable. But I think I should check that out. Everyone in Florida should check that out, including myself. See if they have it. That would be interesting. See what kind of information they have there. See if it's actually authentic or not. Something to question. Always observe responsibly. Speaking of mass shootings, for all those clowns that we're gonna need tougher firearm laws and all that. This is from the Free Thought Project. Came out yesterday by Jay Sauropoulos. Yeah, right. Exactly. So let's just check this out here. It says here, mass shooting myth. U.S. homicide rate hits 51-year low as gun ownership increased 141%. In the wake of the Orlando nightclub massacre, politicians have attempted to use the tragedy as means of garnering public support for increased gun control measures. 4 pieces of knee-jerk gun control legislation were defeated in Congress yesterday, but the debate surrounding gun rights continued unabated. The new narrative in the mass shootings is defined by the FBI as 3 or more people killed in one incident, or at epidemic level, and thus require society to increase restrictions on gun ownership as a means of saving lives and lowering the homicide rates. However, this narrative facing the reality as the homicide rate in the U.S. is actually at a 51-year low, according to FBI data. The homicide rates in the U.S. for 2014 and the most recent available was 4.5 per 100,000. The 2014 is part of a long downward trend. It is the lowest homicide rate recorded since 1963, when it was 4.6%. The last time the homicide rate, the homicide rate in the U.S. was lower, and it now was in 1957 when the total homicide rate was 4.0 per 100,000. Surprisingly, most Americans are completely unaware of this information, as the media and politicians in the U.S. consistently work to create a circus-like atmosphere surrounding firearms as a means of controlling the fear-based narrative of a public need for additional gun restrictions. Contrary to what the public has been led to believe, as the homicide rates have fallen to a 51-year low, gun ownership has increased drastically. According to a report by the Mize Institute, over a recent 20-year period, the number of new guns in the U.S. that were either manufactured in the U.S. or imported into the U.S. increased 141% from 6.6 million new guns in 1994 to 16 million in 2013. This means a gross total of 132 million new guns were added into the U.S. population over that time period. However, in this bar graph on there, you can look at it yourselves. However, one who wants to rationalize this information, therefore one's overreaching theme, increased access to firearms has not led to more violent societies in the U.S. According to the FBI data, has actually correlated with a markedly less violent society as indicated by the lowest homicide rate in the past 50 years. Since the data is so convincingly clear, gun control advocates have now resorted to defining mass shootings as a special type of murder and using the emotion of tragedies like Orlando as an excuse for further regulated firearms in hopes that people's knee-jerk reactions will overcome data and logic. Yes, homicide rates have been going down, they admit, but mass shootings are now an epidemic. This argument fails to acknowledge how absurd it is to attempt to imply that homicides are going up because of mass shootings when there are 49% fewer homicides compared to 20 years ago. This leads us to an interesting question. If the actual goal is to decrease homicides in the U.S., then why would we attempt to abolish the conditions that have strongly correlated while decreasing homicide rates increased gun ownership? An attempt to rid a specific variety of homicide and accounts for a very small percentage of overall homicides in the U.S., regardless of Obama's claim that no one wants to take your guns. There is more certainly an elite-driven elite that is attempting to slowly regulate guns out of the American public society. The push to further regulate guns isn't simply about decreasing homicides, as data clearly reveals an ongoing trend of decreasing homicide rates, which begs the question, if the motive isn't to decrease homicides, then what is the actual intent of pushing for increased gun control measure? There's a great quote from Thomas Jefferson. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. And you know what? That tells you something. Like I said, propaganda. Everybody needs this playbook. Manipulate, con people. That's why, my friends, we have to look at everything more thoroughly and do our homework. Now you got technology in your lap. Use it. Great example about the shootings at Sandy Hook. Firearm-free zone, of course. But here's the question. How come it was reported 0 murders, according to the FBI's Uniform Crime Report? Tablet 8 in the year 2012. Look under Connecticut, look under Newton. 0 murders. Interesting. But the whole thing here, people learning to arm themselves, learning to defend themselves, and criminals fear armed people than a police officer. Alright, and here's one thing you should look at. I posted on Facebook. More people, too, in the LGBT community are buying firearms after this horrific event. There's a big report that happened in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Very good example. And Pink Pistols have increased their membership. Now, like about over 100%, I would say, after that horrific event. Because they know the police aren't obligated to protect us as individuals. I know I harp this enough times if you hear my shows a lot. But I have to push it out there because they want those bastards in Washington, D.C. and all these little bobbleheads in the local state level, these bend-over Bobs and Barbies, Chronicle Toms and Jemamas, I'll be more specific, don't want you to have a certain tool to defend yourselves, families, and loved ones, neighbors, etc. They want you to play this little role of big city for underdog. Underdog, help us. I can't wipe my own behind. That's what they want us to be. Dumbed down peasants. But I'm glad this came out. I think it's awesome. And not afraid to share this with you guys. And you know what? And I don't give a damn if you like it or not. Plain and simple. Alright, finally. This came is pretty cool here. Came from the 10th Amendment Center. It says here, New Jersey Senate Committee passes bill to expand the state's medical marijuana program. Came out today. Last week, New Jersey Senate Committee approved a measure that would expand the state's medical marijuana law, further nullifying federal prohibition in practice. Senator Nicholas Sakturi and Senator Joseph Fattal, both Democrats, introduced Senate Bill 23 45 on June 9th. Legislation would add post-traumatic stress distress order, or PTSD, to the list of debilitating medical conditions that qualify a patient to receive medical marijuana under the New Jersey Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act. Last Thursday, the Senate Health, Human Services, and Senior Committee passed Senate Bill 2345 by 6-3. It will now move to the full Senate for further consideration. New Jersey's legalized marijuana for medical use in 2010. The program developed slowly but started to pick up speed after the state's second dispensary opened in fall of 2013. Allowing patients suffering from PTSD to access medical marijuana would further accelerate the medical cannabis program in New Jersey. Effect on federal prohibition. New Jersey's medical marijuana program removes one layer of laws prohibiting the possession and use of marijuana, but federal prohibition remains in place. Of course, the federal government lacks any constitutional authority to ban or regulate marijuana within the borders of a state, despite the opinion of the politically correct lawyers on the Supreme Court. Piss on them. If you doubt this, ask yourself why it took a constitutional amendment to institute federal alcohol prohibition. The 18th Amendment, which got repealed around 1930, I think 33. Yeah, something like that. Maybe 33. I would say that. While New Jersey law does not alter federal law, it takes a step towards nullifying in effect on the effect of federal ban. The FBI statistics show that law enforcement makes approximately 99 of 100 marijuana arrests under the state, not federal law. By easing state prohibition, New Jersey essentially sweeps away part for the 99% of marijuana arrests. Furthermore, figures indicate that it would take 40% of the DEA's yearly budget to just investigate and raid all dispensaries in Los Angeles, a single city in a single state. That doesn't include the cost of prosecution. The lesson: the federal lack of resources to enforce marijuana prohibition without state assistance. Bingo! The New Jersey is among a growing number of states simply ignoring federal prohibition. Colorado, Washington State, and Alaska have all legalized both recreational and medical marijuana, and 23 states are now allow cannabis for medical use. With nearly half the country legalizing marijuana, the feds find itself in a position where they simply can't enforce prohibition anymore. The feds need states' cooperation to fight the drug war, and this has rapidly evaporated in the last few years, with the state legalization practically nullifying the ban. The lesson here is pretty straightforward. When enough people say no to the federal government and enough states pass laws backing those people up, there is not much the Fed can do to shove it down their so-called regulations or mandates down our throats. 10th Amendment Center founder and executive director Michael Bolden said, the proposal to expand the state's medical marijuana law also demonstrates another important reality. Once a state puts laws in place legalizing marijuana, it tends to eventually expand. Once the state tears down some barriers, market develops and demand expands. That creates pressure to further relax state law. Senate S-2345 represents another step forward for patients seeking alternative treatments and a further erosion of unconstitutional federal marijuana prohibition. And it does. And I'm gotta give the committee for the Garden State credit for this. I'm pretty critical in New Jersey and a lot of other areas, but this is really good news, because one thing I gotta tell people: there's no victim. Where's the crime? None. There's no crime. And it's been proven time and time again that marijuana is very beneficial to people who need it. So we gotta repeal that 1937 law, marijuana prohibition law, which a lot of people know, or people may not know, is that it was a petrochemical company such as DuPont lobbied for it. So something like this has to be done, and people in this Garden State, whatever you do, push for this, call them up, and you got to recall. If not, recall their butts. This is in your state constitution, by the way. You can recall your legislators too, local, state, and federal servants. I call them servants. Okay, so absolutely, it's great, and keep up the good work. Let the 10th Amendment is not dead. Someone told me that. I just laughed at him. Give him a penile microphone in his mouth. That means he's mumbling. So I think this is really good. And you know what? Keep up the good work. Let the marijuana prohibition end state by state, town by town. If Watch don't like it, too bad. Enough said. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks, plus including all my other archives on Spreaker. All right? If you have any questions or comments, doesn't matter, love, hate, or you got information that's interesting, whatever you do, please send everything with decorum. Keep me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Tumblr, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck and the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com. All right, my friends, before I go, I'm going to play a song. Actually, a good friend of mine, John Joseph, Bloodclot himself, Bloodclot Joseph. He was a frontman for Cro-Mags, and I know his did some music. He's doing some Iron Man stuff, which is great, and activist, help feed the homeless in New York City. Christian Irish lad from the Lower East Side. I love him. I love him and respect this guy dearly. And he has he's supposed to be coming out with a new album. They're in the studios right now. I think it's called the Motorhead Room. Yeah, it's the Motorhead Room. Yeah, they're recording. It was recording in Los Angeles, Lemmy's favorite place. And so it's playing the song. He did with Bloodclot called "Burn Babylon Burn." Actually, it's a good album. You can probably check it out. So definitely look it up, and it's good stuff. It's not Cro-Mags material, but it still has that little kick to it. If you ever a chance to see him live, I recommend you do. You guys he's gonna be 53. It's gonna be 54 this year. Yeah, he's 53 right now. He'll be 54 in October 3rd. Yeah, October 3rd, and he's still got that spunk and spirit. You know, good guy to chat with. And definitely check him out. I'm gonna play that song. So that is all for now. Thank you once again for listening. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.